Despite the recent garbage polling, Donald Trump's on pace for a big victory in the state of Florida. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because the bad polling continues. Like, you thought it was bad enough that states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, states even like Georgia and Arizona, they're having questionable polling right now. That's bad enough. Well, guess what, everyone? It's just gotten 1,000 times worse because the Florida Atlantic has pushed this garbage poll not just from a swing state, but from the state of Florida that shows Kamala Harris is within striking distance. I am not kidding. This is an actual poll that these bozos just put out. This is not a parody. This is not a fake poll. No, this is a legitimate pollster that really thought, you know what? It would be a good idea to post a Trump +3 poll in the state of Florida. You know, a state that before 2024, everyone, and I mean everyone, agreed was going to swing like 10 points Republican. Hell, a month ago, no, 2 to 3 weeks ago, everyone was agreeing that Donald Trump is going to win Florida by a lot. But suddenly, out of left field, this poll drops, and everyone immediately says Florida is now competitive. Trump could lose the state, and not just Democrats saying this. You have a bunch of Republicans, a quotation, Republicans, saying Trump is in trouble in the state of Florida. He has to defend it. I cannot believe that we actually have to talk about Florida because, think about it. 2 years ago, DeSantis and hell, every statewide Republican won in a landslide. Not just by 5 points, everyone won by like 20 points. It was a complete blowout, and everyone agreed Florida is gone for Democrats. But because of one poll, everyone is losing their minds. So you know what? We have to talk about Florida because this is just crazy that people are now saying Kamala Harris is competitive in the state because of one poll. And we're not talking about, oh, Trump's up by 5, which theoretically he could win. No, they have him up by only 3. With RFK Jr. included, they claim he's going to win by only 2 points. In other words, it's within the margin of error. I really cannot believe that someone at the Florida Atlantic looked at these results and said to themselves, yeah, these are good numbers. There's nothing wrong here. You know what? We're done. Drop the poll. Really? In a state like Florida, which we know for a fact is trending heavily Republican, you're going to push out this crap that claims Trump is barely up. The same state that back in 2022, Republicans won every statewide office by 20 points. Now, I know that's not a presidential election, but even Marco Rubio won by 20. So Trump's going to win by a lot. Every data point indicates that, but the Florida Atlantic, they magically found Trump's up by a couple points. And by the way, they are one of the worst pollsters out of the state of Florida. You think I'm kidding? Look at 2020. Their final polls in October of 2020, it was Biden +2, Biden +4. The only remotely accurate poll came in early September when they had the race tied. Outside of that, they were off by a lot. That's a fact. They stunk. And considering the fact that this is not a pollster from New York, this is from Florida, you would think that they would be much more accurate. Considering, they are a polling firm from the state of Florida. Not from New York, not from Connecticut, not from Illinois, no, from the state of Florida. But somehow they were awful. And you know what? Look at 2022. You think 2020 was bad? It was. But in 2022, they claimed DeSantis was going to win by only 11. He won by, 20 points? Not a close race. And you know what? Let's keep going. U.S. Senate 2022. Oh yeah, Rubio +6. He won by 20. So in 2022, they were even worse. So my question is, why the hell is everyone citing this poll as bad news for Trump? You could argue him being up by 2 to 3 points is actually good news, considering the track record of this pollster. They are awful. They suck at polling, and they found Trump up by 3. Despite them being dramatically off in favor of Democrats back in 2020, and especially 2022, the fact that people are panicking about this is just crazy to me. But you may argue, well, maybe the polling misses in 2020 and 2022, they're flukes. Maybe they're not going to happen this time. Like, there's no way that they're going to be off by that much. Well, I don't really believe that for a multitude of reasons, but first, let's start with the poll itself. I decided to look at the internals. Like, okay, what do the crosstabs say? What's the sample? And on paper, it seems fine. Like, they claim that Trump won Florida by 4 points. He got 51% of the vote, which, yeah, that's right. He did win Florida by around 3.5 points. But then you realize the unweighed sample was Biden plus 13. That means they claimed that in 2020, Biden won the state of Florida by 13 points. Now, their weighed sample was correct, but their unweighed sample was off by 13 points. No, not 13, by 15 to 16 points. What does that mean? Their sample sucks. It leans heavy to the left. It's much more Democrat. You're probably going to get way more Democrat-leaning voters in your sample if you're going to have that big of a difference. Again, if it's off by a couple points, like if they said the unweighed sample was Biden plus 1, fine. But Biden plus 13? You're off by 15 to 16 points. You have to weigh the poll that much to get Trump plus 4? Your sample's garbage at that point. All you're doing with the weights is you are adjusting trash. Your sample's garbage, and all you're doing is adjusting the trash. Like, congratulations, you got Trump plus 4. But if the data sucks, it doesn't matter what you do. It's gonna suck. And even Rich Bears brought this up. There is no way to weight a raw sample that's D plus 20 or R plus 20 for that matter. That's an insane response bias, unfixable. And I know some people don't like Rich Bears, fine. But he's an actual pollster. And he's right. It's common sense. It's like, wait a minute. If your raw sample's off by 20 points, you don't have to be a pollster to realize your entire poll is wrong. It's complete garbage. Because at that point, even the quote-unquote independents, they probably lean so far to the left that even if you weigh everything properly, which I think they did here, it looks like they did, but the numbers are so far off, it's not going to matter. Your numbers are just going to be wrong. It's going to suck. It's going to look bad. And that's why I think this poll, it's dramatically understating Trump, because the raw sample was Biden plus 13. It was like D plus 8 or 9 in Florida. It's like, give me a break. This is a Republican state. Trump's going to win Florida by a lot. That's a fact. But that's just the poll itself. All right, fine. It's one poll. It's bad data, whatever. But you look at the RCP average and recent polls from USA Today / Suffolk, it's Trump plus 5. It's slightly better, but it's not that good in comparison to Ron DeSantis, to Marco Rubio, even the University of North Florida, which this poll is a little bit older, it's only Trump plus 7. And the average right now is only Trump plus 6. Which, again, it's better than 2020, but considering the trends we saw back in 2022, you would think it would be like R plus 10. Well, guess what? The RCP average back in 2020 understated Trump by around 4 points. And even in August, like early August, they had Biden winning by 5 points. So they were really off by 8 to 9 points. Yeah. They understated Trump by 8 to 9 points on the RCP average. Does that mean he's going to win Florida by 15? No, I'm not saying that. I guess it's possible. But it's entirely possible that there is a polling miss of even just 2 to 3 points. It would make Florida from R+6 to R+8, R+9. That's entirely possible, and I think that's what's happening. They're dramatically overrepresenting Democrats in these samples. Like, they're claiming Biden won Florida by 13, and yeah, they weigh it, but at that point, the poll's worthless. But you know what? Fine, the polling data, it's bad. Fine, whatever. But you know what else proves to me that the state's trending Republican? Just voter registration. Look at this. Republicans in the month of July, right? This is when Democrats had their enthusiasm surge. They gained 67,000 new voters compared to the Democrats' 22,000. And as of now, they have 1 million more registered Republicans than Democrats in the state of Florida. 1 million. Compare that to 2020. Democrats had a 150,000 voter registration advantage. You know, 150,000, that's all right. But Biden lost by what? How many votes was it? Oh yeah, he lost it by 400,000 votes. So Republicans have a net gain of like 1.2 million. And you really think that Florida's gonna magically be within like 2 to 3 points? I know voter registration isn't everything, but if you see trends like this, not just in one county, if it's in every single county in the state, every single precinct, everywhere, well, that's not a fluke. That's a trend, and this has been going on for years now. The fact is, voter registration shows Florida is gone for Democrats. Hell, even the early voting has been a complete disaster for Democrats. Now, I know this is primary data. I get it. I understand that you cannot necessarily compare primary turnout to the general election. But we were all told that there's an enthusiasm surge. Yeah, well, Democrats, they're going to vote way more because of Harris. And I'm not denying that. But look at this. Right now, Republicans are leading the early vote by 7 points. Back in 2022, during the primary, Democrats led by 5, or just under 6. So a 13-point shift since 2022. Hell, 2020, they led by 10. So a 17-point shift since the 2020 primary. Does that mean there's going to be a 20-point shift in Florida? No, I'm not saying that. I guess it's possible. But the point is, even the enthusiasm, it's not there for Democrats. Because if it was, you would think, okay, even with the voter registration advantage, it's early voting. Democrats would have some kind of an advantage. And theoretically, since 2022 was the absolute worst case scenario for Democrats, theoretically 2024 should be much better with an enthusiasm surge. Right now, we're not seeing that. In fact, each passing day, it's getting worse for Democrats. Yeah, not better, it's gotten worse. I know it's the Florida Democrat Party, they're not necessarily competent. Hell, I would argue they are the most incompetent statewide party on the Democrat side. But even then, what data points here indicate any kind of Democrat resurgence? They are getting crushed in voter registration, in turnout for the primary, which again doesn't mean everything, but it's still noteworthy to show that big of a swing. And on top of that, even the polling still has Trump up by 6 points, and historically has understated him in the state of Florida by a few points. Not just 1 point, but upwards of 8 points. Back in 2020, at the same time, back in 2020, the polls had Biden winning Florida by 4 to 5 points. Trump won it by 3. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.